Hello, welcome to another video. In this video, I'm going to be tackling the second part of the roof. So, it was a challenge. It was wet, windy, sunny, all of the above. I got sunburnt, I got soaked, and yeah, the audio quality goes a bit funky in certain bits where it was so windy on the roof. But I hope you enjoy the video, and let me know if you have any comments or feedback below. The energy levels, a bit all over the place, just because battling the elements and they can get on top of you, especially when you're doing this on your own. But yeah, enjoy the video. Next bit I need to do is the hips up here. So these chunky 9x2s would be two small hips, one coming up here, one coming up here, onto a big ridge again, and then that will then go up into there with another hip that's floating, so it doesn't actually touch any of this stuff down here. But that floating one will then have all these jacks tied into it this side, and also this side here over, so it will tie the structure together nicely. But the roof pitch here is the same, but it's over obviously a much smaller span. As the shape of the building changes towards the back, so it's got a little square or box section coming off the end, which is this obviously an equal pitched hipped roof, and at the back it's also equal pitched hipped roof but hip end. So it's just that little tiny bit which finishes it off. But I think it's the most difficult bit, or this is the bit I'm struggling the most to wrap my head around. It's the floating hip and tying it all in, which bit to do first. But as mentioned, the small hip's going to be done first. I'll support the ridge here somewhere, make sure it's level, and then build the rest in above it. And then I can frame in all the jacks, all the rafters, or straight rafters, as there will be actual common rafters just going up from here. So less compound cuts and also shorter bits of timber to work with. So there are some pros to it other than the mental maths at the very beginning. In order to get this set out, I'm back up on the ladder. So where you can see me fixing on a screw here is roughly where that hip's going to run to, and the angle, so it's pretty much where it projects if it were a full hip all the way down onto the wall plate. So I've got my angle and I can set out and work towards that as my end goal. So I've done the calculation. This is 302 centimeters, or 3020 millimeters. So we do a common up here and a common up here, which are these two here, both with 45-degree cut here, and there's no splay, it's just a straight cut. Lovely. And then I need to do a bird's mouth at 2103.64, so I round it up to 2104, and that will meet at the ridge point. They tie onto these rafters, or tie onto these joists either side, which are 400 centres. There's one that's not fixed in, and then that green string line, that's roughly where my hip will go. Again, roughly, doesn't take into account the thickness of the timber, it's just temporary fixed on now. But then I know to do my ridge board that goes across the top longer than that, and I'll be fine. You see it more clearly from here, these 400 centre floor joists or ceiling joists. This would be the timber, this one, the 9x2, which is then pinched by those two common rafters coming up here. Same as like the jacks down there. And then this string line is roughly where the hip goes, as you see there. And there. It's not exact, as this doesn't take into account the height above plate. So it's actually probably somewhere like this, but it's the angle, so where the ridge ends as such. So as long as I overshoot that, I know I'll be all right, and I can cut it down in situ. Oh, neighbour's racing pigeons just went over. But back on time lapse whilst I get that bit in over there. In order to get these accurate, again, I'm cutting them in pairs, so I'm just mirroring them, and then by the time I go to sit them up, they'll both be the equal length and meet at the same point. So as you can see there, they start to go together, and then I have the end hip meeting them directly in the middle, which I've marked out on that wall plate. It was quite easy to find the midpoint, obviously. Tape measure stretches across that 1.6 meters to the middle, that 3 meter length. But yeah, pretty easy to do this compared to the rest of the roof. As you can see here, a lot smaller than the rest of the roof. I've taken those back down, and I've left the hips a little bit long. Just as, even though this section's a lot smaller, doing the direct measurement is a lot easier. So left them longer because I don't have any spare bits of timber if I mess these bits up, and I've just rested them up there. Yeah, so 9x2s as mentioned tie into 6x2s. So you can see the bird's mouth on there, and that's roughly a 35 degrees. Don't know what happened with the audio on this section, but essentially what I'm saying is the things I'm saying now. Where I've left it long gives me a second chance if I mess it up. And getting the ridge level with the rest of it. So I've just put in a temporary 6x2. You see all these nails here temporarily, just lent up against it, just to find that midpoint before I fix it all together. Because it's a right pain, I can imagine, trying to have to chop out the nails if I fix them incorrectly. So I just want to get it right. I don't have second lives with this, and again, this ridge left long, the rest of it all left long, except from those common rafters which are going to tie into the structure once I'm happy with the lengths of it. Those ones there, and it will go across there, and that 8x2 you see led on its side will also go in. I left it out at this period of time just because I didn't quite know where it would fall, and I want a fixing point for my plasterboard. And also I'm trying to maintain 400 centres right across the build so that all the rafters can tie into it, and then also the structure is sound if it was ever to be used as a floor structure. Because this is, again, all 8x2s are my floor joists, and then I have 6x2 rafters and 9x2 hips. Even on this tiny little roof, you can see the benefits of why you would want a second person. I'm temporarily screw fixing everything in place, and then I'll cement fix them as such, permanently fix them with the nail gun when I'm happy with the angles. And it's just one of those things you have to do if you're working on your own, or rather I've had to do here where I'm working on my own. But then it was onto the big hip. So this is 9x2, it's almost 4 meters long, and I'm just trying to get it onto that ridge where it doesn't affect the ridge being plumb or push it out of level. So I'm tying string lines, wrapping them round the other hips of the building, so then it gives me that square corner that I can work to, so the string line's just touching it nicely. Right, so what I've essentially been trying to do there is not move this out too much, which it has moved out a little bit, but line through the hip with all these rafters. So at the point it joins, it needs to move out this way a little bit because it's out of level, out of plumb. But basically you want it touching the string line and not affecting the string line. It's kicking up a little bit because it needs to go, as I say, this way. And there, it doesn't actually pick up on camera very well, but it's like perfect all the way across that side. You see the angle here, it's cut high, but that's at the point of intersection. That's how high it needs to be against the ridge, but it dead stops here. And then into this ridge you'll have all your rafters. Valley jack coming up here to this point. So it'd be like pressure that way as such, and then you have all your rafters coming this way, knocking onto all of the floor joists. But that was a real pain. That was probably the worst or most difficult job to do because I had to hold it in place and then cut it so I got the angle right. Just because I cut it at 35 degrees, it wasn't 35 degrees. I cut it at 45 degrees, it wasn't 45 degrees. So I don't actually know what angle that ends up being. But then I moved it, so maybe it was 45 or 35 degrees. Get there in the end though. and then start to fill in this bit tomorrow. All my strings are in, so this would be the valley rafter. Rough location, I haven't fully worked it out. And then you've got that floating hip up there. There is a string line running down off the bottom of that. And then these two string lines basically just check that the roof is square, so all these rafters over here and over here all tie in with each other. Because if they don't tie in with each other, then the building's out of square, then on the roof rafters it's out of square. It's going to present me with a real issue when it comes to putting the tiles on, because that's what it was like before. This bit wasn't square with the rest of the building. I don't know how they calculated it before, or maybe there was some movement over the 100 years. But yeah, this is just a prop, and again, as I mentioned, the movement still needs to happen, so this needs to come this way a little bit. I don't think it will pick up on camera down there, but essentially I'm going to get all my rafters in this side, obviously, at those 400 centres, and then chop this off somewhere around here. We'll see where the last one lies, because I want one over the other side of this, just to pin it in place as such. Then it's plenty of jack rafters all the way around that hip, and valley jacks somewhere here, tying into this hip. But we'll see how that progresses. So although you may have seen me in the previous video using a bunch of complicated maths to work out all my jack rafters and also common rafters, this time I'm just direct measuring it. It's such a small span, and my phone's also doing the recording, so it cannot be my calculator. I just thought it'd be easier to direct measure them. So I'm just getting my lengths of timber that I've got left over that are long enough. Those tan lines are awful. But yeah, getting my timbers, sorting through the pack, getting the bows all facing up, the cups, the curves, the camber, all facing up, so when under compression of the weight of the roof, they effectively pull straight. But yeah, it looks like I'm wearing a t-shirt when I'm not wearing a t-shirt. But yeah, cutting them all together makes my life a lot easier. So it's a 45-degree roof, so I just need to use my roofing square, set it on the top, and then cut them, and then it's onto fitting them, doing the bird's mouth. And I'm checking them as I go, because there was a bit of an issue with my saw and the saw calibration. I dropped the saw a couple of times, I can't lie, but it knocked the saw out of angle, so essentially it wasn't cutting at 45 when I wanted it to be cutting at 45. So it's just getting these to sit over nicely, making sure I'm happy with the angle and there's no twist in the cut itself, which then causes a twist on the timber where it sits in that bird's mouth. So it's back to being rainy after a few nice sunny days of me getting out my awful tan lines. But yesterday I got most of the bits that I wanted to do, which was these common rafters which shoot up to here. I need to chop off the end of this ridge. As I said, left it long on purpose, but I'm going to get in these jacks today. I'm going to direct measure them to this plate, so I'm going to put on a bunch of nails, 400 from here, and then work my way across. Just where it's quite rainy and slippy, I just got to take my time really, set up some boards here so it's nice and safe, so if I fall, I only fall to these boards. I don't plan on falling though, because it's quite high up. But a very minimal setup today, so nothing can get wet, and just really go for it, get as much as I can done, as I think it's rainy for most of the rest of this week. And tiles are due to arrive tomorrow. I've just ordered all my batten as well. It'll come from a different place, the batten. I don't know whether it works out cheaper, but it's the place I always go to for my timber. I should probably shop around a little bit more, because if you're getting a kilometre of batten, it adds up really, really quickly. I still have a good chunk of the old batten that needs to go to the tip. I did have someone come collect a lot of it, a lot of the old timber. He was like, oh yeah, come collect the timber. I was like, oh, fair enough. But I think he got about 3-4 carloads, maybe even more than that. And I think that was enough for him, to be honest. But it's still quite messy out the front. I'm just leaving these pallets here until I do my water main properly, and then I don't fall down the trench anymore. But we'll just go on a time lapse again whilst I get this bit in. If I do fall, I guess it would make a good clip for the video. but I'm not going to fall. Anyway, let's get on with this. Now, this may look satisfying on camera in time lapse. It wasn't satisfying doing it, just the up, down, up, down, up, down. It's one of those jobs again, you wish you had a second person there just to hold the tape or climb up the ladder for you, because yeah, it was a bit slippy, a bit stupid really, but I'm over the boards. I feel safe when I'm up there. I'm also supporting myself whilst I'm up there on the rafters around me. It doesn't feel like I'm going to fall at any point, but it's just about being safe on these jobs, because as mentioned before, if I fall and injure myself, no one is coming to do this for me. This building is going to sit here and rot. So it's important that I just take my time with things, and then doing this section, much safer. Nothing to worry about, and it had stopped raining. So the rain jacket was off, and then I'm just flying in all these jacks, just direct measuring them again, using that roofing square, and then just having them tie onto the rafters. So all the jacks are in. All the jacks are in on the corner. I ran out of 90mm nails. How annoying. So can't fix some of these ones in. Like this one, for example, and that one's only got one fixing in. And then I need to go up here, the valley there. My jack's coming down, but can't do much without any more 90mm nails. I did order these ring shanks for all the battens, but my 90mm nails that I ordered last week from the same place haven't arrived, so still waiting on them. Cheers Amazon, cheers Jeff Bezos. So waiting on them. All coming together quite nicely. Need to cut these all off, ping my string line down there, and then have a nice box section in there and continue it round. All the jacks are cut on this tiny little hip. I've got another timber order coming tomorrow. It's looking pretty good down there. Loosened up the string lines, and I've done all the giant jacks into that floating hip on this side. Just got one smaller one to go about here somewhere. I think it's up from here, so chop off the edge of that ridge. And then it's a jack here, all the way up. And then I have my valley going up here. And then I'll have jack valley rafters. So they'll be going from a cut angle down here to a cut angle up there, straight all the way across, and then the same here. But I haven't got any 9x2 to do that bit, so I'm going to do it with 8x2s that I've got left over, and you can see those are my last bits of 6x2 before my top up of 6x2 comes tomorrow. But there's a small bit I'm going to prepare for out there, as I'm planning on doing a porch, gable end porch out there. But we will see, as I need to do the prep for that, valley boards and all sorts. Although I'm going to do a dry valley, I'm going to do valley boards underneath just to support the dry valley system. I think it's a better job from what I can see online. I've never done it before. We'll find out. With all the rain, running out of nails, all my batteries dying, it seems like a reasonable point to end the day. And in the end game now. All the tiles, other than my ridge tiles, as I stupidly forgot to check the order for ridge tiles, I was checking for the quantity of tiles, were missed off. Part their fault, part my fault, but I'll just order them whether I need to go in and collect them. I could do a more accurate calculation of how many I need as well, but everything else is there. I've got my dry ridge kit, my end caps, my dry valleys, I think they're fiberglass or something, those bits here, and then all the tiles, my tiles and a half, 100 meters of 1.5 meter felt, and then all my battens, almost a kilometer of battens, and they're the bigger ones. On here where I'm at 400 centers, I can use the smaller battens, but I think the bigger ones are more readily available, so I'll just use them, because that's partly what I was recommended to use by my friend, just because it was a bit cheaper. I think it was a bit cheaper, or they're a bit more readily available. Can't remember what he said. He goes, just get these ones. But yeah, Need to get all them up and finish the last bit of the roof, which is those timbers there, which is my remaining 6x2 and my 4x2s for my ashlar structural wall, which will support the roof itself. So I'll detail it a bit more in a video, but it'll be a wall going through here, bird's mouthed onto all these timbers to support them all the way around. So it'll be a straight stud wall sat on the 8x2s and noggins and flooring and everything. So it's a structural element which supports these timbers from bowing, so you don't have things like purlings in the way. With the final timbers arriving, I can get on with filling in this last little bit. So direct measuring again and trying to race against the rain, as I've scheduled more rain. If you're watching this anytime in the future, this was filmed at the beginning of June in Southampton, which is supposedly the second sunniest city in the UK. It doesn't feel like it. But I digress. Yeah, so I'm cutting the ridge roughly to the length of where it will almost touch that rafter, and then as a result it can go down nice and neat, and that ridge doesn't obstruct anything. It's left a little bit long, and I can take out the support at a later date. But this was the trickiest bit so far, doing this valley. So trying to work out getting all the timbers to line onto it correctly, it was a nuisance, to say the least. So I did a template with a offcut of 6x2 just to try get the angles right, and I struggled. So I used another bit of 6x2. I also struggled. Eventually I got it right with the 8x2 that I finally ended up using, and then I'm just using my level across just to work out where the rest of the rafters should fall, just so I don't get into a mess with the tiles. So you'll see the level flying up in this time lapse multiple times. That's literally me setting the level on top of all the common rafters, and then it ties in nicely. If they're all touching, and it should touch to the middle or the edge, depending on what type of tiles you use, it doesn't really matter too much as long as it lines up, so you don't have any divots or bumps in your tiles. So the valley jacks have started to go in. And what is a valley jack? These ones, so angle, angle at the top, angle at the bottom, and they're still straight timbers. So I had to put a bit of blocking here, because otherwise this space here between these two is over 450. It's a bit too big. I mean, they should both meet at the angle here. I mean, it's not going anywhere. Structurally it's sound, but there's a 45, 45, 35, and it goes up, meets a bit higher, ties on to the other ridge board and goes up there. You can sort of see where it comes through in the light, but I need to do one more big one in here and then fill in all these little ones. Then it's onto the corners and the ashlar wall. When I say the corners, the tiddlers in the corner over there, if I even need to put them in, and the ashlar wall that all these timbers sit on and go round. A more skilled person would do the wall and have it fixed down and then double bird's mouth over everyone. Essentially have this cut here and then that cut also up here somewhere sitting over the wall. But I still need to put in all the noggins for that. But that's one of those jobs which can be done when it's watertight. I can get the felt on first, definitely. As I actually scheduled some bad weather, so do definitely need to get a move on with that. I've just run out of batteries as well, so I use a thicker blade. I've bought some thinner ones as well, which I should have brought before doing all these cuts, and that would have made my life a little bit easier. But yeah, everything's dead, so I need to go back, recharge, and give it another go tomorrow in the rain. So as you may be able to tell, it's quite rainy. So I didn't film me doing the other side of that valley, but you'll notice where they hit, they are higher, and that is because as it goes in there you want your batten to shoot right across. Although I'm not doing valley tiles, so it's not as important, it's still something that you want your batten to shoot right across so it lands on there, as you can't have this angle out at all. And all this one over here. So they'll all eventually tie in to be dead level. But inside I need to do an ashlar wall, but I can do that after it's covered over from the rain. I need to just get the house covered over. So I've got my felt, I can start covering over with the felt. I'm going to go around, chop off all these excess bits, move this timber joist over to here, add in the noggins, all catching. So then I've got places to catch the plasterboard all the way across. Now I still need to put timber here on top of this wall, but I can do that later. But I'm going to try hold off on the felt for a few hours whilst I do all the other bits, just purely because it's so much easier if I can get a second person. As it is a bit windy, you don't know if you can quite tell, but it's so much easier just to pull it across, even if you put it on one of the scaffolding poles and it's just flapping around, especially if you're doing like 10 metre run. Like all the way down here, it's a nuisance, even 7 metre run down there. I could do the little tiny run out the back. I did felt it when I stripped the tiles off myself, and